So I just showed you my aluminum factory using the regular recipes. It was pretty complicated. You had byproducts of silica and water. So in this case, we're going to keep it a little bit more simple, and it's a little bit easier in many ways, and I'll show you those ways. So we're going to use alternate recipes of sloppy alumina. So sloppy alumina takes 200 bauxite per minute and 200 water per minute and outputs 240 cubic meters of sloppy alumina per minute. So we're going to use 3 refineries with this recipe outputting 720 alumina solution per minute. And we're going to combine that with a regular aluminum scrap recipe. We need 1080 aluminum scrap per minute. This takes all 720 per minute of our alumina solution and 360 coal per minute, and it will output 1080 aluminum scrap per minute. That's more than one Mark V belt can hold, 780 per minute. So we're going to have about a belt and a half full of aluminum scrap. We also have to deal with the water byproduct from aluminum scrap. This recipe outputs 120 water per minute, and we need to do something with that. In this case, we're going to work it back into our sloppy alumina production. So I've done a little pre-work here, lining up some floor holes and some pipe holes, ready to make our aluminum factory right here. First, let's go look at our water production. We have 2 water extractors down here, outputting 240 water per minute. Now we need 600 water per minute, but remember that we'll have a byproduct of 360 water per minute from aluminum scrap. So that will add up 360 plus 240 equals 600, and we'll have all the water that we need. So one thing we're gonna do here is put down our refineries in 2s, feeding each other. One making sloppy alumina, and the other one using the normal aluminum scrap recipe. So we have our bauxite here on this side and our coal input on that side, and I'll show you why this is right now. Let's get out our refinery, and this is going to be a sloppy alumina refinery, and we'll line it up with that floor hole right there, and we'll take the bauxite in. And then we'll do the opposite here with this refinery, turning it around and lining up with this floor hole over here. So this will be our aluminum scrap refinery, taking in our coal here and taking the alumina solution from next door directly into the machine. This makes it a little bit easier to arrange them in this manner. Hey there, big fella. How'd you get up here? Huh. And so we'll output our water from this machine here, making aluminum scrap, water byproduct, have it join up with our water pipe, and then go right back into our sloppy alumina machine. And we'll have our aluminum scrap output right here. We'll make a stack of 2 belts because we have 1080 of it, and it requires 2 belts worth. So let me put down the rest of these refineries, I should say. 3 pairs of sloppy alumina and aluminum scrap refineries working very well together as a pair. So if you use a nice round number of bauxite, it actually makes the math on the machines pretty easy. So I'm using 600 bauxite, which works out perfectly to have these 6 refineries for this stage in the process, going to alumina solution to aluminum scrap. So because our alumina solution makes the exact amount that we need for aluminum scrap on each machine, we'll just feed this pipe directly into that input. Pretty easy. Doesn't get much easier than that. So let's get our lifts on too before we forget. We have our bauxite in, we have our coal in, we have our alumina solution moving from one machine to the other. The only thing we have left to do in this stage is hook up the water. So each of these second machines outputs water, and we need to hook it up to the 240 water per minute that we're getting from our water extractors on our basement floor. So what I'm gonna do is lay down our pipe junctions and then hook everything up together. I like to lay out these pipe junctions like this, and then so lets me know where the pipes are gonna go, and just gives you a guide of hooking up the rest of the pipes. You can set them like this, almost like conveyor poles. So if you haven't noticed, I like to color code my pipes. It lets me know what's in there. If you didn't know, each pipe has a section like this where it colors that section by whatever is in the pipe when it's pumping. But I like to color the entire pipe that color just so I can keep it straight. That's why I colored these short pipes, this gray color, the color of alumina solution. This pipe setup works because we have 3 aluminum scrap machines outputting 120 each, so 360 total, and 240 coming from the basement floor from our 2 water extractor. That gives us 600. Now that's the exact amount that we need, but we might actually have to add a 3rd water extractor because fluids in this game slosh around and you don't get that steady feed, the same thing that you get with conveyor belts, so your production can flicker a little bit. So we may need to add another water extractor, but we'll let this run and see how it goes, and then play it by ear if we need to do that once it gets going. So now let's get our aluminum scrap output. We have 1080, so we need 2 Mark V belts worth of output. So there you go with this ultimate recipe of sloppy alumina. That eliminates some of your headache because you don't have silica byproduct from the alumina solution. So this is the end of the alumina solution, aluminum scrap portion. And the next thing we have to do is build 18 smelters to build all the aluminum ingots. So I'm gonna build another vertical manifold to match these skyscraper type buildings over here and here, but I'm gonna do it here over the lake. The other important alternate recipe that we're going to use in this build is pure aluminum ingots. This is different from the traditional recipe that also uses quartz in addition to aluminum scrap. The biggest difference here is that we get a little bit less out of our aluminum scrap. If we were to use the regular aluminum ingot recipe with this much aluminum scrap, we would get 600 aluminum ingots out of this. For this, we only get 540 aluminum ingots, but I like that trade because we completely eliminate quartz from the production line and can use that somewhat rare quartz elsewhere in crystal oscillators or crystal computers. So this recipe is efficient enough for me. It also has the side benefit of simplifying this production chain. I don't need to have an entire floor dedicated to silica production. It's just gone. Now I need a few more smelters than I would using foundries, but smelters are very easy to set up. 1 input, 1 output. So I think that's a trade from convenience, from saving quartz, and it actually uses a little bit less power as well. Now that we've finished the refinery portion of our aluminum build with our sloppy alumina and aluminum scrap, we need to move on to making our pure aluminum ingots. So what you're looking at here are the 2 conveyor belts worth of aluminum scrap coming out of this factory. The top one has 720 units of aluminum scrap per minute, and the bottom one has 360, so 1 refinery's worth. If you add those together, it's 1080, and that's too many for 1 belt, so you have to split them apart. And when you have 2 belts worth of stuff, it can be pretty annoying to work with. But I've designed this in a way to make this a little bit easier on myself. So I have these belts coming out at this height. So I need 18 smelters here to deal with all of this aluminum scrap, and I have 1/3 of it here, 2/3 of it there. So if I put 1/3 of my smelters lower, then I can just use this whole belt here to make these 6, and then I can make 12 more up here to use that top belt. And having these belts come here in the middle make it a little bit easier to feed. The bottom one goes down, the top one goes up. And as you can see, I've adapted my vertical manifold technique that you can catch in one of my earlier videos. Made it a little bit wider. In that video, we had 2 smelters wide. I wanted 3 smelters per level here so it didn't get too tall. So I'm gonna set up the rest of these smelters, and then I'll see you on the flip side. Now that we have our 540 aluminum ingots per minute, the last step in this aluminum production chain is knocking out our 360 aluminum casings per minute. And you can see here that we have 60 aluminum casing per minute with every 90 aluminum ingot per minute. So this gives us 6 constructors worth of aluminum casings. 540 divided by 90 equals 6. So that will give us the aluminum casings that we need. One of the other reasons why we built the previous building with 6 floors, 3 smelters on each, because it works out perfectly to have one constructor being fed by each floor of the smelters. 3 smelters makes the exact amount you need for one constructor. So we're gonna have each group of 3 smelters feed one constructor and then bring the aluminum casings down from there. Here it is, a 360 aluminum casing per minute aluminum factory using 2 key alternate recipes, one being sloppy alumina for the alumina solution and the other being pure aluminum ingot, which removes all the quartz from the production line. So we have our factory here. I'll give you a little tour in a second, but before we do that, let's do my favorite part. Let's hook up the power. All right, let's see if it works. That's a good sign. Coal and alumina flowing. Check the water. Water flowing, pumping. Good. All right, refinery's on green so far. Excellent. Check our coal. Aluminum solution coming in. Ha! After all this, I hooked up the wrong output. I hooked up the output for alumina solution instead of aluminum scrap. Well, let me take a quick return back to the drawing board and I'll see you on the flip side. Well, back to our regularly scheduled program here. The aluminum scrap comes out of this end, dummy. Even DrLootCrate is not perfect. I thought I was perfect until now, but I failed. All right, so we have all of our aluminum scrap coming out that we need, but it seems to be backed up. So let's go over to our aluminum ingot factory there across the way. Okay, now our scrap is going. So I made 2 mistakes setting up this factory ahead of time. One being I had aluminum scrap coming out of the wrong hole. And second, I forgot to hook up this wire right here to our building. So now we have our vertical manifold for our aluminum ingots and aluminum casings. Let's go inside and take a look at that. And it works, voila. Aluminum casings right here ready for Fused Modular Frames. You'll see the ingot machines here, feeding the casing machines here, all the way up 6 floors of that to make 360 aluminum casings per minute, 60 on each floor. So that's our vertical manifold there for our aluminum ingot. So in our next video, we're gonna end up building our blenders to actually build our Fused Modular Frames right over here. So our 360 aluminum casings per minute will go down this walkway towards our Fused Modular Frames factory down there. I'm not 100% sure what I'm gonna make it look like yet, but hopefully something cool. The rest of this factory is looking pretty good, so we have to make something that matches it. Before we end the video, let's just take a little tour. We have our aluminum ingots and aluminum casings here in this tower. We have our water coming up here for our sloppy alumina down here on these 2 water extractors. And let's go up here to the top level to take a look at our alumina solution aluminum scrap production just one more time. So now that we actually have this working and the scrap coming out the right end, we have our sloppy alumina here at 100%, and we have our alumina solution here at 100%, and they feed each other perfectly. This takes 240 per minute. The other one makes 240 per minute. So if you pair them up like this, Each pair will handle 200 bauxite per minute and output 360 aluminum scrap per minute. So this is looking pretty good. I think our lights are white, so let's change that to blue. I think it looks pretty good. I think this whole factory looks pretty good. Just before we go, I wanted to point out this cool design element. So I like to build my refineries with the smokestack sticking out of the roof for this exact reason, to see that puff of smoke outside the building, and it really gives that feeling of a real factory working. So I hope you enjoyed our video today, and hopefully this will simplify the aluminum production for you if you can find these two alternate recipes: sloppy alumina and pure aluminum ingot. There we have it, 360 aluminum casings per minute. On the way to our blenders in our next video, we're finally gonna build the last machines in this big 7.2 per minute Fused Modular Frames factory. So drop me a subscribe so you catch that video right away. If you like this, hit me with a like. And until next time, I'm DrLootCrate, and stay stoked out there.